One of the things I recall about Mark was that it came about 10 years ago, I think 1997, when he spoke to my wife Teresa, and she more or less invited him to go along with us to Spain. And I don't think he'd ever been on vacation for quite some time. And so we were going to Leon, Spain, which is northern Spain. And David, our son, was going there, as it turns out, to propose to his future wife, Claudia. And so we all flew over there. And immediately, I mean, the people just took to Mark as if bees took to honey. They just adopted him. He charmed them, and they just enjoyed him thoroughly. And he also reciprocated. He just liked the people. He loved the language. And as it turns out, he surprised me. He knew more Spanish than I had ever thought he knew. And so anyway, we got along with all the relatives, and there are a ton of relatives there in Spain. And we had dinner every night. You know, we'd have our typical Spanish meals. We'd have a wine at lunch and wine at dinner and cheese and sausage and all these different things. And on one particular weekend, we had they had this party for all the relatives, which amounted to maybe like 50 people. And it was in a bodega, what they call a bodega, which is really a cave which have dug out in a hillside. And many families evidently had this for centuries. They've had little family bodegas in which they usually make their wine. They make wine for their own family use. So everyone gathered there that night, and we had like a barbecue there of everything: sausage, steaks, different kinds of cheeses, and wine, a lot of wine. And everybody sang. They'd have like community singing and individual singing. A lot of talent was there, actually. A lot of the relatives were rather talented. So he really thoroughly enjoyed that. And they just loved Mark, you know, and he spoke the language and just loved him thoroughly. And that's the way it was for the whole 2 weeks we were there in northern Spain. And after that, we had rented a car. We decided to go throughout Spain, and meaning that we were in northern Spain. So we went to Segovia, which is a beautiful little town outside north of Madrid. And then we went to Toledo, and then traveled southward all the way to Granada. It's a beautiful city in southern Spain. Of course, it's warmer there. Driving along the highway, the freeway, a beautiful white town up on the hill. And then we decided to go up there. We drove up there, and it turns out they were having a beer party. And so we went in there, and we had beer, we had sausage, cheese, and everything. Which was very apparent on that trip was just how much Mark enjoyed the people, being on his own, on a vacation, and just thoroughly enjoying a whole new atmosphere. I think he'd been working so hard, fishing, that he didn't realize what he had been missing all these years. And it was just sad because on the last day that we finally returned to Madrid to fly back to the States, and the last night of that we were there in Madrid, and we were just sitting there. It was probably about 8 o'clock at night. It was dark. It was October, first couple of weeks of October, and Teresa and I were getting ready to go out to dinner, and so we went to his room, and we were shocked to see Mark just sitting dejectedly, almost, you know, really forlorn, just sitting on the edge of the bed and just sitting there. And I said, "What's wrong, Mark?" And he said, "I don't want to go back. I don't want to go back. I love it here. I love it here. I don't want to go back." And you know, he's just so solemn and almost depressed. Of course, we knew that he had to return back to go to work. And at that moment, I think it just dawned on us how much he had really enjoyed the trip. And it was in the books. It was written in the books that he would come back again. Unfortunately, as it turns out, and almost ironically, just 4 days before he died, he had called my wife from work. I guess he was working with this friend of his, and he said, "Hey, I have a rosary set up for this Spanish singer that just died." And she had lived in Mexico many years, but her name was Rocio Durcal, and she had just died, very famous. And he was playing her music in the background, and he said, "Hey, we have a rosary set up for her, and I want to go to Spain, and why don't we set it up to go around September, October, or sometime in through there?" And of course, my wife told me, "Sure, Mark, we'll go, we'll set it up." And of course, 4 days later, I get a call from Mike early in the morning, about 8 o'clock or sometime around there, and saying, "Hi, Mike, how are you?" He said, "I have some bad news." I said, "Well, what is it, Mike?" He said, "Mark passed away last night." And right at that moment, Teresa ran and said, "Well, wait, give me the phone, what's going on, what's going on?" She knew from the tone of my voice that something drastic had happened. And of course, at that moment, she took the phone and Mike told her. But it was just so sad that, you know, that trip was taken away from Mark, and that, you know, but he was such a loving fellow. I think just from today, what happened today, you can see how many people love Mark for what he was. He's just that gleam in his eye, the way he just charismatic almost. He should have been a politician. You know, he was just, people were attracted to him. He was appealing to them, and they appealed, and, you know, vice versa. They just loved him. And he was a charming guy. He was very giving. I mean, I think he'd give you the shirt off his back, and I guess he did that for a lot of people. So I think it just shows how much, you know, we loved him and the people loved him, and that was good to see today.
My name is Tom. I'm Mark's cousin from Oakland. And my earliest memory of Mark is showing up after a 6-hour drive in Santa Barbara and seeing Mark in the backyard patio of my grandma's house in Santa Barbara, and seeing him with a cast and in a wheelchair. I think that's my earliest memory of Mark. And, you know, Mark was always real. He was always the coolest cousin, you know, always real friendly, big heart. I also remember pilfering his sleeping bags one day when I found his sleeping bags in his house, and so I never had a sleeping bag at that time, and so I remember liking it so much he gave it to me. And the next day I was in State Street and I saw Olga, his mom, picking him up a new sleeping bag. So he was that kind of guy, and wish I could have seen Mark more recently. You know, now that I'm older, could have related to him a little better. But no, I only have great memories of Mark and his family. So anyway, here's to you, Mark. Thanks for everything.
Mark was one of my best friends. I love him. An Indian friend of mine owed me a lot of money, and instead of paying me, he introduced me to Mark. Go figure that. And it worked out. It was the best date, you know. I've only known Mark for a short time, like 7 or 8 years. We've been in thick and thin. He's always been cheerful in every weather. I'll never have friends like him, you know. They're like few and far between.
I've known Mark, dude, since about 5 years old, okay? Went through everything. All grammar school, junior high, high school, and everything else. But we never got tight until maybe senior year of high school. Just, you know, how people change, people to hang out with and stuff at that time. And we got really tight. We used to do everything, this whole crew of people. including Mike, including a bunch of other people. We used to, something that nobody talked about, we used to be into rock climbing and bouldering, and we'd go up to Painted Cave and do things which I'm not going to talk about because do things high school people do. But we would have the best time. Mark was good at it. Didn't look like it. Didn't look like it, man, but he was good at it. And he's one of those guys that was so full of it that he'd make you want to be better at what you were doing, okay? Because he had that sense of humor, like you're talking, that smile and that sparkle in his eye. And we spent a lot of time like that. Now, there's another thing nobody talked about is Mark loved to ski, okay? I don't know how much he got to do it, later. And I haven't either, but he took me on my first ski trip. Oh, man. Boy, so I don't regret it, but. So we went to Sierra Summit, which used to be called China Peak, up out of Fresno. And he says, no problem. I said, Mark, I got to get on the bunny hill. I've never done this stuff. Don't worry about it, man. I'll take you up. No problem. Okay. Gullible Johnny. All right, here we go. So we go up there, and then, first of all, I get off the lift and flat on my face, right? He's laughing his ass off. We started going, and I pick it up fairly easily. It wasn't that hard. But he would keep coming up to me and going, and dusting me, and I'm like, you bastard. And then I'd fall down. And he would think it was the funniest thing to come right up to me and just dust me out. But you know what? By the end of that day, when he was falling, I was able to dust him out. And it was his personality to push you, because he just loved to do stuff, and he was kind of crazy. So I went skiing with him a few times, and I lost a little touch with him over the last few years just because people do different things. And but I wanted to tell you about, I told you before about there was something I wanted to do but didn't get to do. And he called me maybe a couple years ago because he liked to cook. I like to cook, okay? I'm into it just like he was. And he had been to Spain and all that. And he goes, Lindy, you got to come up. He goes, guess what? He goes, I bought a paella pan, big paella pan. He goes, you got to come up and I'll make it. And you come up and make your ribs because I do baby back ribs. And everybody, he goes, all right, Mark. So what I did, I wanted to give this to him for his birthday, not this past one, but the one before. I bought him this paella book, and I never got to give it to him. And I never got to, do that. So I thought I had it in my truck, and I thought about, bringing it and putting it there. And I don't have it, but it's good because you know what? I'm going to give it to Mike.
My name is Marlene, and Mark is a very close friend and very special to me. Going to be very, very much missed. One thing about Mark that's really going to be missed is that he loved to cook, and I hate to cook, and he hates to do dishes, and I used to do dishes, so that always worked out good. He cooked the meals, and I did the cleaning. So he's quite a good cook, but he's a special person, kind-hearted, liked to have a good time, and just he's a wonderful person. One thing about Mark is that no matter where he would go, whatever city he would go to, he would always know every little back road, neighborhood restaurant, Mexican restaurant where nobody spoke English. You go into an off-the-wall town, and Mark would know where to go eat, and it would be the best Mexican food in the world. I don't know how he knew all these little places, but he did, everywhere. All over Central Coast, he knew these little neighborhood restaurants where nobody spoke English, It was incredible. He really liked food, But I was with him the evening that he passed away, and he had a rough day with his asthma that day, but he was in good spirits and looking forward to moving the next day and getting away and everything, and things were going really well for him, and he was quite happy, doing this as he always used to do, But he definitely will be missed. He was a wonderful person.
He used to fish with on the Brigadoon with Ray Stanley, and I met him here being a fisherman because I'm a bartender, and all my fishermen came here to drink, and that's how I knew him. I always give him a bad time about wearing sandals with white socks. I had to make sure when he got buried that he did not wear a suit, and he had to have a fresh pair of white socks in his casket with him, which I planted in there with him today on his memorial celebration of his life. And he was one of the best men I've ever met in my life. He had a great heart, and he was a very good person, and I will always love him and remember him. But he needs a clean pair of socks, clean pair of dry socks. Fishermen always need a clean pair of dry socks anywhere they go at any time in their life. And that's it, Mark. I love you, and I hope everything's great wherever you are.
He was the first love of my life.
Here we go.
We lived together for a long time. I think that I was the love of his life. I don't know, it's crazy that it's just too hard to even think about it, and just to see him there, and I don't know, he was my first commercial fisherman boyfriend, and I still have a commercial fisherman boyfriend, and I loved him dearly, and I think that he loved me, and
We both loved him dearly.
number 1 and number 7, and
Yep.
she's number 1.
No,
I
you were
was
number one.
I just happen to live in number 7.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We lived at opposite ends, but we were both number 1.
He was very special. He changed my life. He made me who I am today, for sure. He had a major impact on me. I can't believe he's gone. It's just amazing. I went fishing with him for the first time. I mean,
There you go. Perfect.
Our fishing story.
Yes.
I was in the bunk the whole time throwing up. The crew emptied my puke pan hourly.
15 minutes.
Yeah, and I did it for about 3 or 4 months, and I think the last trip I did not get sick. Finally, yeah. And I have pictures of me picking fish back on that picture with him rubbing his hands, I took that picture of him on the boat. Yeah. Oh yeah, that's so Mark.
Right here.
So Mark. I love you, Mark, and I'll see you later than sooner. But I love you.
When Mark first came into town on the Pacific States 1, I mean, I was 18 years old. So that was a day or two ago.
Long time ago.
Long before he met the love of his life. So, bless her heart. So, yeah, I'll miss him deeply. I really will. He was my soul, my heart and soul, and he knew that. And I came back here to care for my mother because she became terminally ill. I went to Mark. Mark is where I landed. And stayed for probably entirely too long, but
Probably.
he's just probably one of the most generous people I've ever known in my life, and very much part of my life. And like I said, he was my soul. I'll miss him very much, and we'll see him soon enough.
Mark Moreno was a dear friend and a beautiful soul, and we met 17 years ago. 17 years ago. Mark was captain of the boat on Dawn's boat.
That's
And
Mark right there.
he was captaining the boat. We went out fishing. I got very seasick. He offered me oyster shooters with rum floaters while I was puking. And he threw beer cans. And Jerry fell off the wheelhouse. He fell 8 feet. He was being a barracuda fisherman, and he did not spill a drink. He landed from the wheelhouse down, and he got a big bruise. That Jerry right there, and he got a big bruise on the side of his leg, and he did not spill. His pants were at the bottom of his ankles. And he kept telling him how many knots and where to go, because Mark was captaining Dawn's boat. And Mark just kept throwing beers at me. I was puking, and they caught this lingcod, and the chairs were really close to the bottom of the boat, and the lingcod kept biting me because they flung it up, and it landed underneath my butt. Lingcod was biting me on the ass, as Mark's throwing beer cans at me. And they're offering me oyster shooters with rum floaters. I was doing the Joe Cocker. I turned as green as Mark was today. And they said, let's turn around and let's come back in. All right, Dan.
Hi, I'm Dave Akey, and I was an acquaintance friend of Mark's. And I just wanted to take this time to tell you how much I enjoyed having conversations with Mark in that little tiny trailer or mobile home that he was in behind the Grange. I met him 3 years ago, and I really enjoyed being with him.